Okay, I think we're live now. Let me see here. And see if I show up on the other screen. Okay, we're live. There we go. As usual, I had a little bit of a hiccup just before going live there. But we are now live. Tonight's stream. We're going to melt some plastic. And we're going to make something. I don't know what we're going to make. And we're just going to kind of wing it from here. But the plan tonight is we left off. This was pretty much almost ready to print. We do have to go through the configuration one more time just to make sure all our settings are good. We don't want to be feeding, a NEMA 14 motor 2 amps, for example. So we're going to go through the configuration, make sure everything's good. I'm going to go through setting up a quick and dirty slicer profile. You do want to have a baseline before you go, and there's no pre-made profile at the moment for Vzero, so you kind of just have to make one. And then we're going to do a print. So to get started here, we need to get our printer online. So turn it on and wait for everything to connect. Don't say fire. We do fires on the wiring streams. So how's everyone doing tonight? It is Monday. I know I normally stream Saturdays. Family function over the weekend. I have this week off work because I normally work afternoons. So I figured I'd do a Monday stream. And just wait for everything to boot up. Come on, you want to connect. There we go. Yes, happy Thanksgiving to all the Canadians out there, including myself. Happy Thanksgiving. Because we do ours in October. Mainsail, standby. Okay. So, configuration. So, where we left off was pretty much default settings. We got it working. We got our X, Y, Z movement correct. What we're going to go through now is just make sure that our motors are getting the right amps. Make sure we don't cook any of our motors here. And then we also got to make sure our stepper extruder, I already have it loaded up with filament. We need to make sure our E-steps are good for the actual movement. We tell it to extrude 10 millimeters. It extrudes 10 millimeters in the correct direction. And then we are going to go on to slicer settings. So bring it back up here. So basically you just want to go through it line by line and just make sure you're not missing anything. So let's see here. Okay, so run current. So we're running 0.25 amps on the X and Y, it looks like, which should be okay. So if I'm not mistaken, I'm going to pull up the specs on the motors here. Where are the motors? Motion. Build plate panels, pocket watch. Motors, where are they? There we are. So a good rule of thumb, because if you're using not the spec motors, you might be using a different type of NEMA 14. Basically half. So if their motor is rated for 0.5 amp, start with half of that. And if your motors you find are cooking too hot, or they're running dead cold and you're skipping steps, you can bump them up. Or if it's too hot, you can bump it down. So we got 0.5 amps. So 0.25 is good there. my Z motor. Now, my Z motor is actually a smaller motor, so I'm going to run at 0.2 amps for now. If I got to bump it up or bump it down, I'll do that. Rebuilt a Honda CBX engine. Oh, that sounds like fun. I've done the brakes on my Focus. That's about it. And I'm coming over a cold, so expect the odd cough tonight. So, what you're seeing here for Stealth Chop Threshold. This is the speed at which Stealth Chop turns off. So I believe right now, at default, it's always on. I believe that's what the threshold is, when it turns on. Or no, when it turns off, I believe. So yeah, so we're not going to play with that. If Stealth Chop does become an issue, you can just lower that value, put it to 0, and you're always on spread cycle. So we'll have always on Stealth Chop. So our currents are good there. Extruder, you're gonna want to check your extruder current as well, because it's the one a lot of people seem to have issues with. If you have the stock extruder, which is a smaller like pancake NEMA 14, they do get hot. I do recommend, personally, if you are building one from scratch, just get the big beefy 32 ounce motor all around. Just use all 4 of those. So let's see, make sure your thermistor is correct. Mine are AliExpress ones are all beta 3950s. That's your step distance, so that we're going to validate in a moment here. Minimum extruder temp. So this is the temperature your hot end has to be at. I personally turn that off because it makes it easier right now to, if you got to extrude plastic, especially when you're validating, you don't have to heat up your hot end. So put that to 0 for now. If you're worried about trying to extrude, and the worst that'll happen is you'll grind filament if you try to extrude with a cold hot end. Max extrude, only distance. I think that's how much you can do at once, so we'll leave that there. 780 sounds fine, I guess. Pressure advance, so we're not going to play with pressure advance. You tune your pressure advance after. Right now, we're just going to be making sure we're printing, because there's also input shaper you got to play with. Now, extruder, 0.2 amps. So again, if you're running the stock motor, you may have to play around with that. So I think we're okay there. Kinematics, so max velocity 250, max acceleration 2000. Those are pretty conservative for now. It's NEMA 14 motors, and you're not giving them a lot of amps. So it's a small machine. You can push it fast, but it will reach its limit a lot quicker than a V2, for example. So just start conservative and bump up until you have issues, and then bump it back down. So I think we're okay there. Save. Firmware restart. Or was it restart I got to hit? I can never remember one or the other. Okay. So we are good there. Home all. There we go. My COVID-19 positive, no, but I do have a child in daycare. And when you have a child in daycare, they bring home the sniffles constantly. And you get it. More Canadian whiskey after the stream. Okay, so what we need to do right now is validate our extruder extrusion, okay? So hopefully it's in the right direction. I wired it up like the default config, and I'm using the default config itself. So when I tell it to extrude 10 millimeters, it should at least push 10 millimeters. Now, the easiest way to find to do this is if you have a Bowden setup, feed the filament, like unhook the Bowden tube, feed the filament through so it's out, snip it, and then just tell it to extrude 10 millimeters, and then just scale off that. So let's do this. G1 E 100 millimeters F 90. I should have told it to go quicker. This is going to take a while. I should have put 300 instead of 90 or something. No, it's still going. It's I told it to extrude a lot slower than it really should. And by a lot slower, I mean like god awfully slow. But it's extruding, so we're good there. Are we done? Okay, I think we're done. So, you tell it to extrude 10. I would go F like 300. You don't want to go too fast, because if you grind filament, you're not going to get an accurate reading. Same if you're skipping steps. You don't know if your extruder's tuned right yet for the rate of amps. So if you try to push too many steps per second and it starts skipping steps, and then you tune your extrusion steps based off incorrect data, yada, 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 just go slow at first. So you put it up to a scale, and hopefully it's 10 millimeters. And ours is not. Or actually, no, it is. I forgot how to read a scale. Okay, so it looks like we are, close enough. Yeah, my cut ain't straight, so I'm going to say it's good enough. So, we're good there. Now what I'm going to do is just cut it with a little bit of a taper. And feed it back in. Okay, we're good there. And now we're going to heat it up, and we're going to push some plastic. So we'll go with 200 for now. Yeah, this filament, it's eSun PLA Plus. Just green, I think. Yeah, just pine green. This guy's printed in it. So it is a nice filament. I do find the eSun PLA Plus a little stringy, though, compared to some other PLAs. I do find it a little bit stringy. But other than that, it prints fine, and I like the color. So while that's loading up here, first slicer, I've really only used Prusa Slicer a few times. And that is on my switch wire, because Prusa Slicer has much better default settings for dual extruder. So I normally use Cura. That's my slicer of choice. I've been using it for the past almost 3 years now. For the interface, this is Mainsail. So what Mainsail is it's a web interface for Clipper that basically makes it so you don't have to use Octoprint anymore. And also, this guy's running on a Raspberry Pi Zero, so it's much more lightweight. Some sites say to measure through the heated hot end. Is that wrong? Okay, I've always been of the thinking that you want to give your printer the data raw. Okay, so if you're extruding the plastic through your hot end, okay, and you're measuring based off that, you have issues with pressure at that point, okay? Depending on the temperature the hot end is, the different types of plastic, depending on the back pressure, how tight your gearing is, you're going to have different amount of pressure for how much it feeds, okay? So if you use that as your basis for measuring, you may be incorrect, okay? Versus the way I did it here, where there is zero pressure on the system at all. It is literally just moving filament through a Bowden tube, least resistance. So that way, when your printer thinks it is extruding 50 millimeters of plastic, it is extruding 50 millimeters of plastic. If it is not giving you what you want in the result of the print, you change other slicing or other settings. But you shouldn't adjust your setting to compensate for something else that's throwing off your data. If you kind of get what I'm saying here. It's kind of like adjusting, it's adjusting your E-steps based on a printed part, okay? So you print out a calibration cube, and you start adjusting your steps per millimeter because your cube is 20.3 millimeters instead of 20 millimeters, okay? Now, is that 0.3 millimeters because your flow is out? Your filament is not exactly whatever you plugged into your slicer. Your steps per millimeter for your extruder is out. The temperature wasn't correct when you printed it, so it expanded more, it shrunk more. There's so many variables involved. Using E-steps off a printed, or adjusting E-steps off a printed part isn't an exact science, right? If you want to adjust E-steps, you have to actually physically measure the movement of your machine. It's okay for rough, if this is a 30 millimeter cube and I told it to print a 20 millimeter cube, obviously something's wrong there. But for E-steps off an extruder and movement, I always want to go off of the raw data. So, okay, so we are hot. So we're going to extrude 100 millimeters. And this time we're going to go a little bit quicker. We'll go 200. Or actually, no, I'm going to go slow again. Simply for the fact that I believe I left filament in here from when I ripped the hot end out of my previous machine. Take my earphones out so I can actually hear it. Come on. I don't know if I have plastic in the hot end, so it might be a while here. Because I remember this was in my switch wire, and I took it out because with the switch wire with the dual extrusion and playing around with the Y splitter, I was having issues. And it's with a Y splitter setup, you actually do kind of want a more sloppy hot end. You don't want as tight tolerances because it was constantly just jamming on me, essentially. Okay, I'm jamming. Why am I jamming? Yeah, it's jamming. Okay, let's see here. Okay. Are you jamming on me? Oh no, it wasn't even extruding. Why wasn't it extruding? Dashboard. It's not extruding. Why is it not extruding? Let's see here. Console. G1 E100F. Let me see here. Oh, I know. Because it's already at 100. It's going off of absolute, so there we go. I forgot about that. A G1 move is moving to a location. So if you tell it G1 E100 F whatever, it'll move to G E100. There we go. And then, so if you try to tell it to move basically the same command, it's already at that. Yeah, it's in absolute mode. So we are pushing some plastic out. Some delicious green plastic. Okay, so we are good there. Set that to 0. And what I'm going to do is back it off. No, wrong button. I don't have. Oh, extrude. There we go. Extrude 1 millimeter. Retract. I don't know why it's not letting me retract. Oh, because the hot end's off. That's why. Okay, whatever. Good enough. Skip it for now. So, we have some plastic here. I'll get rid of that. There we go. Good enough for a cereal, boys. I'll take it. Okay. Oh, let me catch up on chat here. Thanks for a quick question. I'm building a Voron 2.4 and I have a few BTT GTRs laying around. Okay, so it calls for a Raspberry Pi 4 and SKRs. That is everything you see in our recommendations are stuff we know works, okay? This guy has a Duet in it. The switch wire calls for a mini E3. Mine has an SKR 1.3. Tall boy down here on the ground, which you can't see, has a Taco Raven in it, which is a custom board we kind of designed like a year and a half ago that we only ever made like 20 of. So that's fully custom. And so yeah, basically we recommend that. But if you already have hardware and you know how to set up a configuration, you can use whatever. So if you want to use GTRs, you can. You just got to know the pinouts. So when you go to do the configuration, when you go into, your printer config section, and you see these, enable pin and direction pin, you know what pin you have to put in there to get the command that you want, essentially. So it's not complicated. And yeah, you can use a Raspberry 3. This guy has a Pi 0 in it. So if a Pi 0 is running it fine, you can use a Raspberry 3. For Octoprint. Pi 0 I would only recommend with mainsail. Okay, is there a way to get the old interface in Cura? I don't know. I've always used like the most up-to-date one. Actually, right now I'm using 4.5 on my main computer, and this guy has like 4.6 installed. Just reapplied my heater to my bed today. RTV is the messiest substance known to Earth. Tell me about it. I used to build hot-end silicone heat socks out of them. I have it somewhere. But yeah, I've... Oh, here it is. Yep, I know that feel, bro. What do you think of the Nova hotend? Which one's the Nova again? Let me Google that. I've looked at so many different designs. Oh, the Nova? Yeah, it honestly just looks like a volcano that uses proprietary stuff. I wouldn't bother with it, personally. Like, they claim, yeah, it's a fancy volcano. Odds are you're not going to be printing 47 millimeters cubic a second. Yeah. It just looks like it just looks like it's a shiny volcano. And I don't like the volcano as is. So. Thoughts on the E3D Chimera? Well, officially no Voron supports them. And I don't think anyone's ever modded one to support the Chimera. But frankly, I'm not a super huge fan of the design. I personally think there are better ways of going about what they're trying to do. The issue I have with the Chimera is... Okay, so you have your motor, right? So obviously this is a big fat one. But you have your motor, and then you have the drive gear built right into it, and everything sits in front. I can pull up the hammer. What am I doing? I can pull it up here. E3D. Why do I gotta make examples when I could just pull it up? The internet. Okay, so see this heat sink right here? This heat sink is meant to cool hot plastic, right? Because this block right here is 200 Celsius or 240 Celsius or whatever you're printing. So all the heat's going upwards, and you have this fancy, you know, I'm sure they did a bunch of flow simulation hot ends for fans and whatnot to get heat away. So you want your hot heat sink to be getting rid of as much heat as possible. What you shouldn't be doing is strapping your extruder motor directly to the back of it. So now not only is it having to deal with all the heat from your heater block, it also has to deal with all the heat coming off your extruder motor, which is right there. So you have all the heat coming off this guy through this nice big flat steel plate here, contacting directly with your heatsink, or at least radiating into it. Also, I don't like the fact that, see how big that is already? You still have to slap a fan on the front, and you also have to somehow get fans for part fan, because there's no part fan built into this. So personally, I'm a fan of going vertical with the setup. Like the afterburner is essentially, it's a repackaged Bondtech BMG in a housing that suits our purposes here with the fan in front. But basically, it's vertical. So yes, you have a slightly longer extrude distance between the extruder motor and the melt portion. It's not that much longer. I don't think you're seeing massive performance increases. And then you don't have this big fat hot end. Like, look, that takes up a lot of X and Y. I'd rather lose Z because it's easier to increase a printer in Z. Z is usually the axis that it's easier to expand in for the most part. Plus you still have, like, look at the way it's mounted here. You have all those brackets, so you still can't go any higher. So putting the motor on top, getting that heat away from it, getting that bulk away, yeah. Plus, I've seen a lot of things where they're very picky with fans. They do need a lot of cooling, heat creep issues. You still don't have, it's still a V6 block, so you're not going to be doing one-handed nozzle changes on this thing. You have issues with, you know, your heat break itself is still a structural element. As you can see with the Mosquito and the Dragon and all the new fancy design hot ends, people are moving away from using your heat break as a structural element because now you can make it even thinner so there's less heat creep. It just seems not the way forward. It just kind of seems, you know, it's not new. This would have been cool 4 years ago. Now it just seems kind of archaic. I don't know. I don't have anything against it. I just don't see the point of a lot of it. So plus, you know, the gears are cracking because, as you notice, BMG comes with plastic gears. As somebody who works in tool and die, you don't have metal on metal contact with non-dissimilar metals because one will either wear or give. So if you have steel on steel gears and they say don't use lubricant, eventually something will wear. Something has to give. And they're cracking. As you can, they cracked a lot. So yeah, personally, I don't see it being a super awesome thing. Because you can buy a Triangle Labs BMG clone and a V6 clone for a fraction of the price of this, and it'll perform as good, if not better. I don't know. That's my rant on the mirror. Every now and then it comes up, but I got nothing against it. I just don't see the reason for it. Or I think it's dated. But sorry, E3D. Come out with a V7 and maybe. Okay. Yeah, the Humera is good for flexibles, but so is any direct feed. Oh, and direct feed, direct drive. Direct drive is when your feed gear is on the drive shaft of your motor. Direct feed is when it essentially feeds directly from your extruder into the hot end. You know, technically nothing is direct feed because there's always going to be a little bit of a gap. So, you know, the afterburner is direct feed, but it has like a 40 millimeter Bowden. So direct feed and direct drive are different. You know, everyone calls direct feed direct drive. Printing terminology is weird. Okay, anyways. Cura. Okay, so this is just Cura, I think 4.6 or whatever. So right now we have it set up for tall boy. So obviously we don't have 330 by 330 by 400 millimeters on this guy. So we're going to make a new printer. Non-network printer. So this is a Voron, which somehow we are in here, but it's obviously not a V2. So we're going to call it a Voron 2 custom, just so it pulls up the default Voron settings for V2, and we're going to tweak from there. We're going to call it Vzero. Add. Now, a lot of stuff applies to different slicers. Most of the settings are the same in different ones. They're just located in different areas. I like Cura because there's a ton of settings in it. You just have to know where to look for it. So we got 120 millimeters cubed. And yes, this is a slow computer. So for some reason, this part, Cura is just horrible at because it has to like re-render the print volume or something every time you change one of these. People will buy it because it's E3D. That's pretty much it. Honestly, my dream hotend, take a Mosquito heat break assembly because I like their form factor for the heater or the heat sink itself. Which the rectangular kind of whatever they have there, not the circular one. So that, and put basically a V6 block, but mounted the same way a Dragon block is, so it's fixed with the thin heat sink. That's all, or a heat break. That's all you got to do. It doesn't need to be super complicated. And keep the current nozzles that we use unless they somehow come out with a better nozzle design. But I don't think they will because of thermodynamics and the sizes we have to work with. So rectangle bed, heated print volume, no. I don't know. Every time I select rep wrap, it throws an error when it prints. So I'm just going to pick Marlin. I don't think it really matters. Print start, print end, G code. Okay, so obviously, I'm not going to start a print with just print start. So let me see what I have on here. I think I have some G code I could steal some stuff from. They're actually here. You know what, we'll skip it for now. Start end code. Basically, long story short, for your start end code, I basically just extrude a line of filament from like on the front of it for like 50 millimeters just to prime it essentially. $50. Wow, man. Thanks, appreciate it. For the new computer, I am working on, I'm probably going to build a Ryzen, like the 4-core one, the 3300 or something like that. That was the plan this winter. So that will definitely go towards that. Thank you. And as always, any donation goes directly to the stream. Stuff that has been donated so far has pretty much paid for the camera that you see the stream on now and the Elgato cam link that I use. So that officially has been paid fully by donation. So I thank you all very much. Pretty much nothing goes into my pocket because I just reinvested back into the stream and content, essentially. If you watch the video where I blued up the rail, that was pretty much paid for by donations from the last stream. So, thank you. Appreciate it. Buy a Phaetus Dragon. Phaetus Dragon is pretty much the same as the Triangle Lab Dragon. They're pretty much the same. I think the TL is just, they're all made in the same place. Shh. Slice just announced a copper alloy nozzle. Get a copper nozzle that's been plated. So Triangle Labs has a copper nozzle that's plated with nickel or whatever. As long as you're not printing abrasives, that is pretty much the best you could do because the coating on it makes stuff don't stick to it real good. So you don't have boogers build up, especially if you print PETG. And copper is a really good material for transferring heat. That's why you don't want to use a metal or a steel nozzle unless you absolutely have to use a steel nozzle, because the heat transfer is garbo. Bother improving them. The 2mm internal bore is way too loose. Yes, it should be 1.8 the whole way down, because the reason you get that blob when you do a retraction is because it has room to expand out, which, as somebody who's playing with a Y-splitter, is absolute hell. Ask Eddie, an engineer, how that's going along too, because I know he's playing with a Y-splitter too. The TL is a copy of the Fadus. They're both made in the same place. The Fadus is just the higher end version of the TL. So, like, it's China. There's one factory that's just pumping out crap by the boatloads, and the great stuff that comes out goes here, the okay stuff goes here, and the crap stuff goes here. It's all coming from the same place. Like, do you think E3D, whenever you go on E3D's YouTube channel, they have a video where they show off the manufacturing of all their stuff that doesn't show any of the manufacturing of their stuff. It doesn't show heat sinks being made or heat breaks or anything. Where do you think it's all being made? Tinfoil hat off. Josh499, thanks for the Voron content. Thank you for watching. Thank you, man. Okay, so where are we at? Okay. So start and end G code. I'm not going to throw one in here now because I'll somehow screw it up. But basically I just do a heat up, prime a 50mm line, and then go off to print. So we'll go to that later. So I haven't done input shaper. I haven't done tuning for the pressure advance, which we're going to have to because this is a Bowden. Short Bowden, but a Bowden. So what we're going to do is plus thinner nozzles, steel is... Triangle Labs, OEMs. No, I honestly just think it's one. There's probably only a few companies making stuff. Triangle Labs isn't the OEM. I do know that. I do know who makes a lot of Prusa's stuff, though. And if you're they might have a vendor channel. So this is how I like to set things up. Again, I'm one of those people that likes to give as much raw data and then use what needs to be adjusted to adjust. So when it comes to, I know everyone says that your line width should be bigger than your nozzle, but that's your nozzle. So if you want to make 0.4mm lines, you tell it you have a 0.4mm nozzle, and if your lines aren't touching, you adjust something else. That's personally how I do it. I don't tell it I have a bigger nozzle than what I have. If I have a 0.4mm nozzle, I tell it I have a 0.4mm nozzle. So my line width, I go 0.4. Now, something like infill, I over extrude infill for sure because it's infill. That's a lot of strength. So I over extrude infill. But my walls, I make my walls to data, and then my parts always come out good. I pretty much never really need to tune once I get everything dialed in. Yeah, LDO. This has a Prusa bed, but I bought it from LDO. See. In that case, John, use metric. Okay, so wall thickness. This is, how many walls you want. So we're going to print a ye olde Cali cube. So we'll go with 2 walls, top layers, bottom layers. If you're printing Voron parts, in all the manuals, it tells you the default settings. We're just printing a cube, so we don't really need to worry there. Minimum wall flow. Now this right here, I got to read this because I remember I had to change this for a good reason. I think this has to do with gaps, and I was having gaps at some point. So this one I've always actually put at like 50, I believe. Percentage flow for a wall line. Yeah, I think this has to do if you have like 2 walls that like come into each other. This just makes sure that you get the correct amount. I was having gap issues. I think that corrected it a while back. C-seam alignment. This is a big one. So whenever you see a print, depending on what you're printing, you may not care where your seams line up, where your start and end is. The better tuned your printer is, the less of an issue start and stop is. But what I like to do is just tell it to be the back. Unless there is something that I really don't care about, I usually just user specify it to the back of my printer. And then whenever I put my parts down, I orientate them so that my seam is on whatever part I don't care where the seam is. So if I'm printing, you know, a little Charmander here, right? I'll have my seam in the back. So everything on the front, I never have to worry about a blob showing up in a bad spot on them because I know it's in the back. So personally, that's what I do. I set it to the back unless it causes an issue, and then I'll just set it for random or sharpest corner. Yeah. So Z-seam, I usually put it in the back, and hide seam, which, yeah, seam relative. Yeah, so turn that on. So this way it'll always be, no matter where the part is on your print surface, it'll be at the back. Personally, that's what I like. Infill. Now, infill, it depends on what I'm printing. There are basically the three. Grid is probably the quickest for the most part. Cubic is pretty much grid, but it does a fancy pattern where it basically makes sideways squares, diamonds essentially. I'm a fan of cubic on infill heavy prints. Grid for just cosmetic stuff where you just need support. But my big favorite for a low infill percent print is gyroid. Gyroid I found because of its curviness. If you're printing something big but you have low infill because either it's such a big model you don't want to use a crap ton of filament on infill, I find because of the weird pattern you have a much better chance of it being in where you kind of need it for other stuff to lay on it. That Fantasy Castle print that everyone prints works really well with low infill gyroid. Everything just kind of lines up perfectly. But high infill, your printer will shake like mad. So cubic and gyroid are my two go-tos. Cubic for high infill, gyroid for low. Since we're printing a cube, we'll do gyroid at like 10%. And actually, let me throw in a cube here. And I'm pretty sure I downloaded one at some point. Benchy? No Benchy. Everyone's seen a Benchy. Do I not have the cube downloaded? I could have sworn I had the cube downloaded. Huh. Nope, I do not have the cube. Oh no. Mini Mando helmet. Why do the mini one? Oh, I'm wearing glasses. Yeah. Why do the mini one? I printed this thing like 6 months ago. I still haven't finished it. It's been sitting primed. I gotta sand it all to hell. Get all the layer lines out and shine it up. One day I'll get to that. Okay, so community, GitHub. STLs. Test prints. Voron Design Cube. Download. Gyroid. Okay, so we have the cube downloaded. This thing takes up like the whole print volume. Okay, so back to settings. So temperature. No, we are not printing generic ABS. We are printing generic PLA. The devil's plastic. Keep the settings I've changed. I've seen Welding Geeks aluminum Mando helmet build. No, I haven't followed that channel. But for the helmet, the only problem with the helmet, it's a very narrow field of view. You kind of do want a decent field of view, depending on what you're welding. Temperatures, so it's PLA. So we're going to go with like 200 and like 210 for first layer. I always print my first layer about 5 or 10 degrees hotter. Build plate temperature, initial layer 60. After that, we'll go to 55. Okay, now, print speeds. This is a Voron. Let me move my camera so you can see. Okay, so because this is a Voron, it defaults to 120 millimeters a second infill, 40 millimeters a second outer walls, 80 millimeters a second inner walls. That is pretty much default settings for all Vorons. For a V0, you can run it at that. And we are going to run it at that. But we're going to drop the accelerations down a little bit, and we'll move up from there. Once input shaper is tuned and you know what the limits are of your printer, you can start bumping those speeds up. So travel speed, though, we are going to drop that down to 200. I have found, now this is with a lot of testing with the smaller motors, which are, not that guy. Got so many motors. So these were the motors that we originally designed for the V0. These are one step down from the current spec motors for the XYZ. And these they work, but you start skipping pretty easily. Layer shifts are pretty common. So this is such a small volume that even if you set your speeds to 300, odds are it's really not going to make much of a difference if you drop it to 200. So drop it to 200, because if that one random burst of 300, if you're not set up right, might cause a skip step. Again, once you get everything tuned, you have some hours on your machine, you can start adjusting stuff. Okay, initial print speed, 30 is fine. Initial travel speed, yeah, sure, 80 is fine. Enable acceleration control, yes. So, we don't have input shaper, so I'm going to tweak some settings here. Now, once you have input shaper on and tuned, you can pretty much set your acceleration for like 5K or whatever your printer can safely run at, and, you know, just let her go. But until then, you're going to want to set some settings. Or if you're not running Clipper and input shaper for whatever reason, you're going to have to manually set your acceleration. So, for example, V226 back here, still running RepRap firmware. Eventually I'll get around to putting Clipper on it. But I usually run like 12 to 1600 outer walls, $2,000 inner walls, and like 4 or 5K XL for infill. Because infill, who cares what it looks like? It's infill. As long as it's printing solidly, who cares if there's, you know, ripple in your infill? It's an infill. You're never going to see it. Plus, it saves time. Go with 1200. Oh, for infill. Sorry. Infill $2,000 because our max acceleration is $2,000 on this guy. For now, again, adjust later. I'm just going over common settings. So 1200 for outer wall. Inner wall will go about 1800. It's so small, you're probably never going to see any difference. Enable retraction, yes. It's a short bowden. We'll go with 3 for now. Again, tune based on how it's working with your plastic and whatnot. Retraction speed, I don't like it that fast. I find 40 for retraction speed, and then roughly about 30 for your unretract, so your prime speed, how fast it feeds it back in, works pretty good. And I run that on the afterburners as well. But on the afterburners, it's obviously a much shorter retract. Combing mode. So it will, basically this saves you a lot of time depending on what you are printing. And when it does a travel move, you can tell it to basically stay within printed part, and it won't do a retraction. It'll just move right there. That can save you some time. It can also add time because your printer might not be able to make the shortest direct movement anymore. It might have to do a Z-hop. And I always run Z-hop. I'm one of those people. So, combing mode within infill. So that means if it can move somewhere and stay within infill, it'll stay within infill and move there versus going directly there. This also helps with blobbing and stringing, because if every time you move outside the shell of your print, you risk bringing a wisp of plastic with you. So avoid printed parts when traveling. This can help a lot. I like having it on because this way you don't accidentally, if you have a print where it's coming out, if it's curling up, this prevents a nozzle strike by accident, and nozzle strikes, could damage the print and also knock it off your print surface. Are you running ZHop when printing PETG? I do not print PETG. I'm an ABS and PLA guy. However, when I did print PETG and with ABS, and actually I always run it. I always run ZHop. PETG though, I did find had a great benefit from using ZHop because that prevented all the nozzle boogers, like all the buildup of plastic on the nozzle. When I printed PETG on my Monoprice Select Mini way back in the day to print my Voron V1 parts, I ran it like a flat 30 millimeters a second, and every travel move had a 1 millimeter ZHop. It printed slow as hell, but every print finished perfectly, and there was no buildup on the nozzle. Having a plated nozzle that prevents buildup also helps, but I didn't have one of those at the time. So ZHop only over printed parts. So that means if we're going to travel from one point to another and we're not traveling over a printed part, we don't need to ZHop. ZHop height, I like to go with like usually about 0.5 millimeters, but because of round numbers and OCD, we'll go with 0.6. Now, ZHop eats up a lot of time on lead screw printers because we don't have the super fast speeds that we have on Switchwire and the V1 or the V2. So, yeah. Do I have something against PETG? No, I work in industrial plastics. I'm a tool maker by trade. I build plastic injection molds. I use ABS because ABS is an industry standard for reasons. PET, if you look outside of plastics, like 3D printing, PET is pretty much only used in plastic bottles for a reason. It's ABS, polycarbonates, polypro, TPU, TPO. There's many other plastics that are better at most things. PETG is just common in 3D printing because it doesn't smell bad and it doesn't melt when you leave it in your car. Plus, all Vorons are designed to be enclosed, and if you enclose PETG after a while, it will eventually fail. Ask anyone who's enclosed a Prusa Mark III S and printed ABS for long periods of time, what has happened to their printed parts. So I know a few people where they failed. Because it won't melt like PLA, but it will start to weaken over time. Because it's glass transition point. It's not like PLA where it's fine, mush. It'll fine, okay, mush. And during that part, you're going to stretch your parts. Holes are going to get out of like warp, and especially where you have like screws compressing it, it'll start to ooze out. I've seen on the V1, the bed mounts used to be printed, and people printed those out of PETG, and after many hours of printing with the bed spring tension on it, it was pulling the screws through the plastic parts in PETG. And yes, PETG does snap. It's brittle, but it flexes a lot too. It's, mechanical properties of materials is a whole science. So, don't get me wrong, PETG is kind of good. It's good for vase modes and anything you kind of need to be watertight because it has really good layer adhesion. But if you can print ABS, especially enclosed, where your layer adhesion is good, you should be fine. ABS is an industry standard for a reason. Okay, moving on. Printing fans. Yes, fans. PLA, you want fan. So usually I go like 80, and then I'll max up to ramp up to 100 if needed. I'm not going to go crazy max because it'll stream and it'll be loud on the stream, probably. Initial fan speed, 0. I don't like turning the fan on until a couple layers in. I want those first few layers to really bite to the bed. So you don't want to be going full fan speed right off the max. So we'll start regular fan at like 2 millimeters. So what Cura does is it ramps up. So it'll start at 0, then 5, then 10, then 15, or however many divisions it takes. So, hi, can ASA be used instead of ABS? Yes, it can. ASA is basically ABS that's just chemically formulated to resist UV. For the most part, for 99% of applications, they are exactly the same, and material-wise, they are pretty much exactly the same. Just a few different chemicals are swapped out. So ASA was made because if you ever look at an old Chrysler and the bumper is all weird colored because of UV radiation melting it or discoloring it, that's why ASA exists. Because ABS gets eaten up by UV radiation, basically. So mechanically, they're pretty much the same. They're within 95, 99% of each other. So. Support. We do not need support. So skirt, brim, raft. A skirt is basically a fancy prime line around everything. Brim sticks out past it. Brim is good if you are printing ABS on a printer that is literally just has a cardboard box over it, or unenclosed but in a room with no draft, or you don't have, a PI bed surface using some glue stick or something, or your bed temperature, you can't get it that hot. Don't be afraid to use a brim, because a brim will help you with warping and parts popping off your bed. So if you're having issues with prints sticking to your bed, there is no shame in using a brim. Okay. And they peel off relatively easy, and then you just go in with like an X-Acto and just trim off any excess. If you can find eSun ABS Plus, yes, that is pretty much my go-to black ABS. I like KVP, but I can't get KVP in Canada. But for just pure reliability, it's amazing plastic. It's very newbie friendly. And dual extrusion, do not have. Okay, so those are the base settings in Cura. Now the thing with Cura is it doesn't give you all the settings. So with Cura, you have to click this little gear here, and it's under every setting. So if you click it under cooling, it'll pull up all the extra settings. So for like quality, there's a ton of extra settings. So if you look at my main profile, which it's on my main computer upstairs, I have 4 or 5 times as many settings available because I've turned them on. So you can change outer line width, inner line width, prime tower sizes, all kinds of different settings. I'm not going to go into all of them right now, but I wanted to cover the base settings. Stuff that you're commonly going to see, and stuff that will be common on all pretty much slicers. Some stuff like print inner walls before outer walls. You may want to turn that on or off depending on the object you're printing. For example, if you're printing something with a lot of overhangs, you want to print inner walls before outer walls. But if you print outer walls first, dimensionally they are slightly better. For example, it really depends. Usually I print inner walls first just because it makes overhangs come out so much easier, because instead of printing on nothing or barely anything, at least you have something on the one side for it to kind of stick to. So I'm going to turn that on. Alternate extra wall. That's a setting that I like using on any of my Voron part prints. And what that does is every other layer, it adds an extra wall. And what I find that does is it locks in your infill. So if you ever have issues where your infill isn't quite touching the wall, or it's not quite connecting 100%, this allows another layer to sit on top of it and basically sandwich in your infill and lock it into your wall. So I do like using that. Chris Hinkle, $5. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Oh, Doc, not a fan of brims. Once you start getting with PEI and good plastics, good ABS, brims kind of become useless for the most part. But personally, if you got to use them, use them. There's no harm in it. Just make sure you clean everything up when you take it apart. Is this Cura profile? No, this Cura profile is mostly just for PLA for now. This machine will be mostly a PLA machine for me. I have fully enclosed V2s for ABS. You can search. Yes, you can search. So say there's a setting that you read an article like, oh, you should adjust this setting, and you can't find it. You can go in the search bar here and search it. Okay, so compensate overlaps. And also with Cura, if you just keep your mouse over it, it'll give you a little tooltip on what it is. Compensate the flow for parts of a wall being printed where there's already a wall in place. Print thin walls. So if you have a wall that is in the model that's smaller than your nozzle diameter, this will forcibly print it. This I usually leave turned on because some details in design will turn out funky if you have it off. Filter out tiny gaps. Pretty sure this one. Yeah. So say you have a section where you would have two wall sections come into each other, and it leaves just an itty bitty little gap there that infill will never fill in. You can tell it to fill in that gap or leave it. So there's hundreds of settings here. This is why I like Cura. If you know what you're looking to do, you can tune so much in this slicer. randomize infill start, infill white distance. There's hundreds of settings in here. Some of them are experimental. Some of them are dependent on other things being on. For your like speeds, you can change all kinds of speed settings. Z-hop speeds, which I don't know what it defaults to, but I'm going to bump that up for sure. So there is quite a bit in here. Like, there's tons of settings. Yeah, minimum layer time. Minimum layer time is something you really want to pay attention to, especially in ABS, because I'll get into that later. But with ABS, you don't want to cool it too quick, and you want extrusion to be consistent. So what that means for ABS, say you have to print, you know, one object, okay? So I'm printing an object like this, okay? Where it's got a bunch of, this is not how it prints, but you have a big fat bottom area, and then you got this little spire here, okay? So if I was printing this by itself with a minimum layer time, because if I tried to print too quickly with ABS, the details don't turn out well. You want it to naturally cool down to ambient temperature. Rona. You want it to naturally cool down to ambient temperature on its own, basically, and not be hitting it with a fan or too much of a fan or forcing it to cool too quick, because it'll constrict at a different rate. Okay, so this can cause a weaker part and a dimensionally inaccurate part. So, what I like to do is you can turn on minimum layer time for ABS. What that'll do is it'll slow your print head down so that your layers take a minimum amount of time to finish. The problem with that is you will see it in your print. When it slows down, the plastic will be extruded differently than it was previously, and you will have a visible blemish in your part. Now, it's mostly cosmetic, but what I like to do is basically artificially increase my layer time. So say I have, you know, I'm printing two parts, okay? I got a big flat part like this, and then I got another part like this, okay? And a benchy, okay? So obviously, I'm good to about here, okay? I'm good to about here, okay? The problem is the spire of my benchy is small, and this is small. So I'm going to start slowing down, okay? And one of them's taller than the other, so the end of that part will be really deformed or really obvious that something changed. What I will do is I will print a cube on the other side of the bed. I'll just go in like 3D Model Maker or whatever, or just import a calibration cube. 2 walls, no infill, whatever. And I'll put all my parts in one corner of the bed, and then I'll put this cube on the other side of the bed, okay? Yes, you're wasting a bit of plastic, and you're adding print time. But what that means is that extra travel time and print time will artificially increase your layer time. In the end, it really won't change your print overall time too much. But what it'll do is when you get to the end there, it'll still be having consistent layer times. So that way it'll print each part consistently the entire way up. That's a trick that you can use to get better looking ABS parts. It's mostly applicable to plastics that you don't want to put a lot of fan on them, like ABS. So minimum layer time I find is good for PLA, because PLA you can just hose it with as much fan as you want. But stuff like ABS, where you're only giving it a little bit of fan just to help with accuracy and part quality, you really don't want to be blasting it with the fan. Or slowing down and speeding up, because slowing down and speeding up leads to visible imperfections with plastic parts. So that's going to be enough settings for now. I think I've tweaked enough. Slice this guy. Yes, basically what you want to be doing is basically stalling it. So you know that travel move over there, printing the few little walls, usually is enough to give you enough of a minimum layer time. Okay, 54 minutes for this cube. So let's see here. Now we do have a fancy cube here with all this extra stuff in the middle. Now, for those that don't know, you can fit a bearing in here and another bearing in the other side. And that's basically to check the dimensional accuracy of your printed parts, how good it is for overhang, dimensional accuracy for the walls, how good it looks on the sides, yada, yada, yada. So there's quite a bit of test built into this one little cube. So V0, there we go. Okay, save. I don't know what I changed there, whatever. Restart the firmware. G-code. I have a cube. I never printed that cube. Delete that cube. Oh yeah, I didn't print it last week. Upload. Where did I put? Oh, it's in downloads probably. Yeah. Should set it for 300 millimeters a second. Well, once I get input shaper tuned on here, we'll see how fast I can push it. So, do you want to start? Yes. So, where some other 3D printer channels have fancy setups for, you know, cameras and, you know, tripods and stuff. I do have one tripod. This camera's on a tripod. For our up-close camera today, we will be using a Logitech C920 with a printed arm on a piece of wood. There we go. Ta-da. This is an improvement from our previous first print video where we had a Logitech C920 on a printed arm held in place by a spool of filament. So this is boring. Bed's just heating up right now. Now, this is fully open. I'm not going to worry about soaking it like we normally do. Where we normally do the 10-minute heat soak for the bed. This is a small enough bed, and I'm only printing PLA. I'm pretty much just gonna give her and go. Dutch dude, I believe there is a setting. There is a setting where you can tell it to lift the tool head and move it to another location. The problem with that way of doing it, and I have done that method in the past, so what it'll do is it'll print at its normal speed, and then okay, I gotta wait 8 seconds. It'll go wait at a location for 8 seconds. The problem is it doesn't turn off the hot end, so the hot end will just ooze for the 8 seconds, and then when you go to print back in, it'll have like that little dribble of plastic, and it turns out yucky looking. Unmaker 10-minute heat soak. So it's a general rule of thumb with Vorons, especially the V2s, the enclosed ones, the V2 and the V1, that because they have such a thick bed and a lot of thermal mass, you heat your printer up to temperature. So you'll turn your bed on to 100 Celsius or 105, whatever it is, and you let it sit for 10 minutes with the nozzle just above the bed, and then you start your print. Okay, because one, we have to do the gantry tram, which you want the bed to be at its equilibrium temperature before you do that. And two, your fan sounds like a weed whacker. That doesn't sound that bad. And two, the printer is fully enclosed. Now, this gets up to about 50 Celsius in there, ambient temperatures, more closer to the bed, about 40 near the top. Metal expands, okay? So think about it. If you level your printer and start your print right away, as the printer heats up, it'll expand. Metal grows, steel grows 0.03 of an inch per 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Basically doing that heat soak allows everything to stabilize before you print. Okay, so I don't know if my Z offset is correct. I think we set it for like a 0.2 layer height. So, oh, that nozzle's way too close. Oh yeah. Oh, no, it's printing. Do I have skirt on? Did I use a skirt? I can't remember. Yeah, I used a skirt. Oh yeah, my bed's not level at all. No, maybe it is. No. Okay. Cancel print. I gotta level my bed here. Actually, no, I leveled it with the other side, I think. Did I? Yeah, I think I'm way too close. Pause job. Cancel job. Where is my movement? Status. Ah, shoot. Don't be melting anything. Console. G28. The joys of a flex plate. Okay, so I think I was too close there. So let's go to our settings, config, printer config, Z offset. So if I tell it that it is -0.1, it'll think it's below the bed and go higher, right? Lack of macro is, yeah. So for those that don't know, Mainsail OS is still kind of in beta. So so if you'll think it's -1, it'll go up higher, right? Yeah. So we'll go with that, 0.1 mil. Restart. Yeah, where's my movement? Ray, where did my movements go? Ray! I don't have a webcam. Console. G-code files. Refresh. Oh yeah. Mainsail, I gotta refresh a lot. Currently. Oh, there it is. Home haul. Beta, alpha, alpha, alpha. Okay, G-code files, print again. Yeah, it's fine right now for just, I want to print, but it'll get better over time. Like, if you're used to, like, duet web control, at least this supports, you know, webcams. I don't have one plugged in, but... Actually, Ray, if I were to plug in a webcam right now, would it automatically detect it, or do I have to change some default settings first? I do have my little tweezers. Where are my little tweezers? Well, remember, Mainsail is not duet web control. It may look the same, but from the ground up, it's completely different. I think it just uses view. Okay, so that's not too bad. But yeah, it just looks like duet web control. It shares none of the same, like, programming or whatever. Yes, that is one thing. We haven't fully tested it with a Pi Zero with a webcam. I have two webcams. One's USB and one's ribbon cable. So I don't know which one I'm going to put in. Why aren't you sticking? Is it too high? You know what? 1 second here. Pause job. Cancel. I don't think I cleaned my bed. I might have grease on it. Yeah, it's not really sticking too well. Oh yeah, main sale is baby stepping. I forgot about that. So cancel job, G-code file. Yeah, I'll just use baby stepping next time. It's right here. Okay, that looks better. Yeah, down a little bit. Yeah, it was too high actually. That's what it was. No. Actually, no, it's just not extruding. Why aren't you extruding? Oh. Make sure the latch on your pocket watch is closed so that the filament actually will extrude properly. Please and thank you. That is all. I have done prints where I've like started a print and then I'm upstairs because my computer, I have a screen on it for just monitoring prints, and I'm sitting there and I'm watching it go to start printing, and I see the tool head move past the camera and I see the arms up. It's run all the way downstairs to try and close it before the print starts. It's like shit. It happens. There we go. Now I have tension on it too. Science. See, that's the beauty of this stream, right? We're doing everything live. I'm learning as you're learning. So now my baby stepping's probably all screwed up, so. Oh, look, now it looks like it's actually laying down plastic properly. There we go. Okay, so we are printing. I don't know if I can adjust the focus any better on this camera. Give me a second. Because it is a webcam, so it can only focus so much. It has zoom. Huh. Yeah, that ain't better. Yeah, that's as best as I can get. So. Basically, I can't get too close. Good enough. I thought that was the C270, because I know my C270, I had to rip that guy open. The C920, I know I can focus it in software. Unless there's like another manual one further in there. But usually this guy's good enough. Like this gives you, I'm pretty sure you can tell how it's printing. And noise level ain't that bad. Like the fan is legit the loudest part. Now, obviously the part fans haven't kicked in fully yet, but what are those black Gates belts? These are Pouch belts. I ran out of Gates belts, so this is Pouch 2GT or GT2 belt. I can't remember what it is. It's one or the other. I still recommend the Triangle Labs, but if you can't get it for whatever reason, Pouch belts are okay. They're better than generic brand AliExpress for sure. So this is PLA. It's unenclosed, so I don't have. How are those part fans? Oh yeah, those are part fans going now. So for fans, I don't spring for fancy fans. My printers are in this room, which is in the basement, and I run them lights out whenever I usually run them. So I just buy cheap fans. Roughly how many hours did it take you to assemble your Vzero? Well, on Maker, fortunately, I streamed the whole thing. So parts 1 to 4 were the build. Part 5 was firmware. Oh, there goes the fans. So let me pull up my YouTube channel and we'll take a look. Oh, those are some whiny fans. let's see here. Hello, when you print ABS, are you venting the printer or room, or do I need to worry about that? I work next to a 3,000 ton injection mold press that'll go through several thousand pounds of ABS a day, and I don't wear a mask. Now, that's an industrial setting, but what I actually do for my printer, V226 back here, this is my main ABS printer. When I print ABS, what I do is my printer is fully enclosed, panels all around. I have a gasket in there, so I just like that foam one-sided tape. So it's gasketed, and it is sealed up as best as I could seal it up. And then after the print is done, I wait about 30 minutes usually, or roughly however long it takes for the ambient temperature to drop down to room ambient. And ABS particulates, for the most part, are pretty oily, and they'll settle on the interior. And then once you open it, they've settled. Once they've settled, they've settled. So you can pretty much just keep it closed and then open it after the print's cold, and most of this stuff will stay inside the printer. And then just wipe down the interior panels every couple of months or whatever. I haven't wiped mine down in quite a while. So yeah, so for build, obviously, okay, so we got part 1 was 2, 5, 8. Yeah, probably about 12 hours. Now, I'm streaming while I'm doing this, so I'm also, banter and chatting and whatnot. So it is a full day build. Like, if you sat down, you woke up, had your Cheerios, and poured yourself a cup of coffee, you could have it built in one day. I would personally say it's a weekend project to go from starting to build it to printing a part, especially if you've never built a Voron. Now, if you look, I did do a V2 build as well, which took a little bit longer, but it's an easier build. I will say, in terms of being complex, the V2 or the V0 is probably the most complex build out of all the Vorons. Just for, you have to follow order of operations. Yeah, you're going to spend more time waiting on parts. Plus, what's going to happen is you're going to get some parts, and then you're going to build it as far as you can, and then you're going to run out of parts that you need, and then it's going to wait, and then another part will show up, and then you could put a little bit more of it together, and it'll take you a little while. Yes, I'm printing gyroid and fill. And right now we have no input shaper and no pressure advance. So I haven't actually played around with input shaper. I really need to do that. I do need to do this week. I'm going to make a video on how to install Mainsail OS. I have it on SwitchWire already. Or I have Clipper on SwitchWire already, but it's running on an Octoprint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a video on the full installation of Mainsail OS from scratch, including how to flash your SKR right now. Now, if you have Octoprint already installed and you're using Clipper through Octoprint, it's a lot easier to install Mainsail OS. It's basically copy and save your config, install Mainsail OS, and then copy your config back in, and it's like 15 minutes. But I'll do a video on start to stop full install for a fresh build. Yeah, we have an Ube 3200 ton, I think it is. And then we have a 3200 ton, we have a 2200 ton, 1000 ton, and then we got like a little 500 ton at work. They're just tryout presses. We don't run production, we build the tools. I actually have a little injection mold in the garage from shop class, but it weighs like 75 pounds and it's rusted shut. I'm really tempted to pick this up and see how it'll print upside down. But I want to get most of the print done, so if it fails, at least we have something to go off of. Yeah, Jeremy, AliExpress is pretty much back to normal for the most part now. Most of the big ticket stuff, and that's another reason our sourcing guide is usually stuff that people have ordered from multiple times, so we know it's good stuff, and it's not, some random shop that'll take you 6 months to get your item. So usually most of our suggested vendors are pretty quick. Cost of V0 parts is roughly 400 to 600. Yes, roughly 400 to 600 USD. You could build a V0 for, depending on your sourcing, where you get your bed from, how stingy you are with certain things. Like, you know, you could build it with a V6. It's a $12 hot end. Or if you build it with a Mosquito, that's a $150 hot end. It depends on what you choose. This one has a dragon in it. And I'm going to lose my voice tomorrow. So one thing I'm hoping on is I'm hoping I don't have the dreaded lead screw wobble. There is something in the works for correcting that. I don't know if I can say it. But it is being looked into, because I know some people have the lead screw wobble issue. Vincent, thoughts on Dragon versus Mosquito? 1 second here. There you go. There are my thoughts. I did a video. Long story short, I have nothing against the Mosquito. It's just the Dragon does what the Mosquito does cheaper. Within so close of a percentage point in terms of performance that I can't argue. Oh, and a nice little feature. So, with Mainsail, it'll show you on the little icon. It'll give you a little progress bar, and it'll tell you up here your percent of printing. So, actually, will that still show if I turn off, if I actually close the window completely? I don't know. But yeah, oh yeah, well the one main fix is, yeah, go to T88 instead of T82, I believe. This is some Hobgoblin T4 2-start or something weird like that, because I bought it like a year before this thing was even half designed. So, yeah, I have a weird Hobgoblin. Remember, okay, if you go look in the manual for V0, let me see here. I think it is in the manual, which I've probably downloaded a million times. You can watch that while I find it here. So for V0, for those that don't know, the design of it pretty much started, I think, back in early 2019, I believe, late 2018, early 2019. Mr. Cat Food himself started designing it, and then it got to a point, and then it just kind of sat for like months, and like almost like half a year, I want to say, and then Nemgria picked it up and basically started almost from scratch and brought it home. We had our first functioning ones, I think, in January of this year, and then whenever it was pushed live is when it was pushed live. I wish I had saved some of these parts. I'll pull up some videos here. I have some videos I didn't make public on my YouTube account of testing some of the early designs, but for those that don't know, like, it went through a lot. Yeah, the development graveyard. So that's my hand right there. So that is the bed. The original bed was printed. And then we're like, wait, let's use one extrusion. Let's use 3 extrusions. And then, because the original design used LM6UU bearings and 6mm rods and 4 extrusions. And everything else was going to be printed. And it was going to be a belted Z. Yes, you can print every functional part required, or every part required to build a functional Voron, any of them, on a V0. That's why it's a 120mm bed. And no, it is not a Prusa Mini competitor. It's more of a dice analog. We basically, because the dice is all custom components and expensive, we wanted to basically be able to build a dice off using commercial off-the-shelf parts for cheap. Unfortunately, the mono price is dead. It pretty much, the way it's designed is kind of not conducive to modification and fixing of the frame. I had a lot of seized bearings on it. Some of the rods literally had like grooves worn in them from seized bearings. The hot end was dead on it. It had an M4 threaded rod screw for its lead screw for the Z. So it wasn't even a lead screw. It was an M4 rod in a nut for the Z. So your steps were like 0.1 or 0.0013 millimeters or something stupid oddball like that. So it was, unfortunately, it's dead. John Clark 50. Oh, thank you very much, man. Appreciate it for the new non-mutant Z lead screw. If I don't need to fix it, it's going to the computer fund. But thank you, man. Appreciate it very much. Thanks. But yeah, as you can see, we had a lot of printed parts. Originally, Vzero was going to be a lot of plastic. There's one of the first designs of a jetpack, for those that don't know. So right there, that picture right here, it was like generation 1 of the Vzero, where we had rods, it was all printed parts, and only 4 extrusions. That was kind of like Rev 1. Oh, no. I have one collecting dust. I'll send it. Don't worry about it, man. If anything, I got that crappy i3. I'll probably finish some point, and I'll use that as my base model printer to show how to do ABS for newbies. But yeah, so this is part of the development graveyard. Pillow block. I had this functional. Another first revision of jetpack, I believe. More first revision parts. Oh yeah, there's the original Z, belted Z, for those that want to trip down memory lane. So yeah, this is why we went to a lead screw, because a lead screw is actually cheaper and more compact than all the random stuff we were trying to figure out. Some of the tool head designs. Yeah, for scale. Originally it had a 100mm bed. So the actual first revision had a 100mm bed. And that's what the bed looked like with the tool head. So that's a 100mm bed. And then we went to 120 because the Monoprice Select Mini is a thing. And because it is a thing, there is a lot of stuff for 120mm beds, including flex plates. So yeah. I actually like this tool head design with the fans on the side, but it was bulky. Oh yeah, and dreaded printed idlers. We're gonna make a return. Oh yeah, and those if you get bored with KW10 micro switches, you can make little robots out of them. But yeah, it's a. Oh yeah, and also was going to use 4mm belt, which. Oh my god. Here, let me go back so you can watch the print, because I think this is it of pictures. Let me go digging here. I gotta dig for this. I know I have it somewhere. Oh, there it is. Okay, so for those that don't know, and for those that are on the dev team, you wait bye-bye to money, because the dev process, you see banding? Yeah, I'll wait till we get more of it done. The dev process is quite long on some of these machines. Switchwire was probably the quickest from start to stop, and probably had the least amount of parts that were designed into the machine, and then a revision happened and after we ordered it, and then parts showed up and went straight into the scrap bin. But at one point, this guy was using this belt. It's this 4mm 2GT belt, and it's from some random printer, I believe, and we found this on eBay. Or no, it's not even, it's S2M4E belt, but it's 4mm, and it's made in Japan. But yeah, we were going to use this for the belting, because it's like super high quality, and it's from like some random printer. You see banding? So far, it looks more like extrusion. Oh, yeah, I see it. Oh, well. We'll worry about that later. But yeah, that was going to be the belt. So I think I paid like 15 bucks for this, and it's been in the pile. You got to remember, you are seeing it under overhead lighting, which is the harshest lighting on a printer or on a print. Let's see here. Yeah, switch wire was about 3 months from start to stop, and that's including a complete redesign because RCF originally designed it as a capstan printer. That's why it's called switch wire, because originally it had wires instead of belt. Needs a key back. That is the simplest solution to a problem that has plagued Core XZ printers since they came around. Because if you take your V2 and flip it on its back, your gantry falls. How do you stop that from falling? Oh, you could gear it up, you can do all this fancy stuff. Oh, let's just buy a $12 key retainer and just strap that on. That works. And it works. It's rated for like 1 million retracts, so. And it's made in America. But it's available on Amazon pretty much everywhere, so. I'm thinking, yeah, I think I had this issue before. I do see, yeah, there is banding to it. Again, I have an odd size lead screw, or a non-spec lead screw, so I'll probably be swapping it out. Again, this is mostly a backup printer and like random knick-knack PLA printer for me. So, but if you have the proper lead screws, it shouldn't be an issue. Now, for all I know, I could also just need to play with the lead screw mounting nut, and it'll be fine. So, there's a few different ways to fix it if you got some banding issues. But yeah. So while this is streaming, anyone have any questions about a build or? Yeah, T88. Yeah, you know what? Let me load up the good old Alley. I'll order one tonight. Just swap it in. Shouldn't be too hard to fix. It's just drop in pretty much. But yeah, so while this is printing, we still have about an hour left on it. Open floor for any questions about any builds or anything, and any random printout questions. If you want me to rant about anything. Let's see here. How long have you been involved with 3D printing? Coming up about 3 years soon. About this time, 3 years ago, I started looking into getting a printer. In like late October, November, I got a Monoprice Select Mini. And then by the following January, so like 2018, I think, I had pretty much realized how small it was and how quickly I was outgrowing it, and I built a Voron V1. And then as soon as my Voron V1 was built, about a month later, I started building a V2. And I managed to snag serial number 26, which somehow we're up over 1,000 serial Vorons. Like 600 and something, almost like 700 of them are V2s. I think we're at 650 or 670 are V2s, which, oh my god, that's a lot of Vorons. But yeah. It's exploded this year. I think between COVID and a lot of people having a lot of free time, it's like reached a critical mass. Like, it's insane how many. There's like 4 or 5 serials a day now. Am I seeing Z-Hop? Yes, I do have Z-Hop on. I pretty much run Z-Hop religiously. I work in a tool trade. You don't run cutters across surfaces during travel moves, so I've always just innately had Z-Hop enabled. No questions. Just want to give you thank you for all your content. You need confidence to start printing ABS on my ender in preparation, converting it to a switch wire. Good luck on the conversion. I know a lot of people are doing that. I think that's a great idea. You'll get more out of the printer you have. You'll be able to use a lot of the components. ABS is not scary. I don't know why so many 3D printer channels are like, ABS is the devil. Halloween, I'm going to dress up as ABS because apparently that stuff's scary. But it's an industrial plastic that's used worldwide for the vast majority of things that are made out of plastic. And it's used commonly for a reason. The problem is a lot of people, they buy cheap ABS because they want to try it. Cheap ABS warps, cheap ABS stinks. And then they watch, a big 3D printer channel say, oh, it's evil, use PET. So ABS is good. If you need something that doesn't just sit on a desk and look pretty, ABS. What would you recommend, Octoprint or Clipper? Well, you need Clipper for V2.4. Unless you're running RepRap firmware on a Duet plus DueX, you need Clipper because you got to control 2 MCUs. Now, if I was just Mainsail or Octoprint, the one downside with Mainsail right now, other than the fact it's in alpha and it is a little buggy, is there's no add-on support. So if you want to run any of the Octoprint add-ons, as of right now, none of them work. There is some work being done in bringing some support over for some of the bigger add-ons, but as of right now, it is pretty much bare bones. What would you recommend? Okay, let me... How long until V0.1? I'm not... I don't think that's on the horizon right now. There might be a few minor updates, but I don't think there'll be a 0.1 anytime soon, like a full-fledged release. They're really, other than the lead screw issue, for the most part, this has been a pretty solid design. And plus, it spent so long in dev that I think a lot of stuff that you would have normally seen was sorted out before it was released. How do you happen to become the Voron dev team, and what's the recommended path? The recommended path to just be on the dev team is just contribute to join the Discord, be a member of the community. If you're good on design, start designing a mod or something. Basically, if we see something, you'll get pulled into it, essentially. There's no application process. There's no set criteria. It's just kind of, hey, we like you, come join us type thing. I've been involved for, over 2 years on the dev team, kind of. So since like the 2.0 days, 2.1 days. So I've been around a while. I think that's kind of why I got in. I've just been here for a while. But not everyone, some of the guys are program guys, some of the guys are developer guys, or hardware guys, some are software guys. I just have a background in plastics. I'm crap at CAD. I just learned to solder, like, in the community here. So I'm just more of a testing monkey and idea input. But basically, there is no set way to become part of the dev team. It's just, just contribute to the community, and you might make it in, you might not, but, you'll help others. And that's why we're all here, just to help others. How do you deal with ABS shrinkage? So all Voron parts are designed with ABS in mind. So when you go to print a Voron part in ABS, shrinkage is already accounted for. It's already been tested in ABS. So you shouldn't have to worry about shrinkage in any of the parts because they are designed with shrinkage in mind. That's why, some people have issues when they print Voron parts in PET or PC or some of the other exotic materials because they're designed with ABS in mind, because that's what we recommend. Trouble the first day, so okay, bed adhesion. Okay. Yeah, and those are just, okay, so funny thing, there's apparently like hundreds of Vorons in China that aren't serialized, but they can't serialize because Great Wall of China, Great Firewall and all that. So there's a whole Voron community in China. And I've seen some of the printers they've built. They are creative as hell with colors. Like, they go nuts with the colors, and I love it. So there's some ballin' Voron builds in China, I will say. I've been printing PETG religiously for its strength properties. I found ABS to have poor layer adhesion. It really depends on how you're printing the ABS. If you're printing ABS in an enclosed printer at 50C or plus, it's the layer adhesion will be good. PET, just from the nature of it, does have amazing layer adhesion. But in other dimensions, ABS is better. And yes, China figured out how to build an IDEX Voron. It is a beast. It looks complicated as hell. But they basically added like a third motor to the gantry, and it's nutso looking. But they have an IDEX Voron that they did over there. It's insane. And yeah, that is no way official. Okay, so I don't know if you can hear it here, but this is one thing that I really like about Cura, and this is why I based the profile off of modifying the V2 profile in Cura. Let me pull it up here. While I'm doing that, you can watch that. So, in Cura, under experimental, there is bridge settings. And all these settings here, now for Cura, for those that don't know, if you enable something, but you don't enable all these other settings, it'll just default to whatever the defaults are there. So you don't have to like turn on every setting to have a setting for it, because the Voron profile already has settings for a lot of these. But if you just want to look at all of these, I'll just turn on a bunch of them. You go down to experimental. There's all these settings that automatically adjust speeds, feeds, and fan for bridges and overhangs. And they pull out some amazing bridges and overhangs with these settings. So that's one of the reasons I love Cura. Like you freak out because your fan kicks off and you think your fan died. But what it's doing is it's automatically adjusting how the machine is behaving for overhangs and bridges, and the bridges and overhangs come out immaculate. Like it'll do like quick little span lines, and then it'll build a bridge over it. But yeah. But yeah, it's Cura is, the bridge settings on Cura are really good. I do like them. Like, here, let me see. It's going to be hard to see. But this was a Cali Cube off another one. Yeah, you can't get a light in there. Yeah, it's too dark. But basically, it's flat right across. Like, it's a perfect bridge. Thoughts of adding weight to the frame of the printer to dampen vibration and resonance to improve prints and dead-end machines. So, for John, input shaper cancels out, basically corrects for resonance, or cancels out resonance. I can't remember one or the other. But basically, it'll allow you to get 5, 6, 7K XL. You do want your printer, though, because you are still slinging mass around, right? The more weight you are moving around, the bigger your printer, the more it'll resonate, the faster it's going, yada, yada, yada. So, essentially, you do want your printer mounted on a solid surface. So, this is, this might sound a little anal about it, but for input shaper, for example, I would not run input shaper and calibrate it on this desk. Okay, so for those that don't know, this is where my printers live for the most part. They're just on this. Now it looks kind of weak because it's just those generic $100, $150 workbenches you get from Home Depot or Crappy Tire or Lowe's, but it's bolted to the wall. So it's relatively stable, and I have reinforced it underneath. This desk right here, though, is built out of wood. It weighs a few hundred pounds, and I built it as a reloading bench originally. So this desk is bolted to the floor, to the wall, and it does not move. So if I were to tune my printer with input shaper on here for resonance, it would probably, I don't know how much, but I'm just thinking here, it would behave different here than it would on this desk versus another desk, because it's resonance, right? So input shaper, you probably want to tune it for where your printer lives. You probably even want like a full spool of filament on it, for example, because I don't know how anal it is. I haven't played with it personally yet, but I expect it to, you want it to be in its natural environment. So yeah, so for your printer, Don't have your printer sitting on like, you know, an IKEA lax table, because that's how everyone does it. Apparently you just get an IKEA lax and they put another one on top, and that's your enclosure, according to R3DP. But you want, it's a CNC machine. It is, you know, a mechanical machine made out of metal. It moves. You want it on a mounted surface. You don't want it, you know, flapping in the breeze. So as for adding weight, my V2 already weighs 40 pounds. Tall boy is like 50 something. These are heavy machines already. Now, obviously, you know, this guy's a little bit lighter, you know. Ooh, flying printer. But I should have turned it the other way, but whatever. But yeah, you do want it mounted securely. I know, I think it's Teach Tech or one of the other CNC Kitchen. They did a video where they had it on like some foam on a concrete slab and all that jazz. Personally, I don't care about noise, so I just put it on something mounted solidly. Ooh, thunder. Okay, so if the stream cuts out, there's a thunderstorm. I'm probably going to start soon, because the UPS only powers that printer. So yeah, so for input shaper, you want your printer where it's at. Yeah, okay, who's pinging me on Discord? So just so you know, if you try to ping me on Discord while I'm streaming, I can't see it. Okay, I got a few here. Okay. Thinking of bolting aluminum square tubes filled with lead to the main frame. You could do that. I don't know how much of an advantage you would see. Remember, this guy already weighs 40 pounds. Like, it's heavy. Like, there's a lot of weight here already. I have a, you know, a big, thick aluminum bed. Plus, I think you want more of the weight lower. It's better to have all the weight lower. So, if you really wanted to, if you want to be baller, get a 1/4-inch steel plate and just mount that to the bottom of your printer. That would probably be like the easiest way to add weight to your printer. Or, you know, just take a bunch of filament spools and just put it on top. You know, just pile up all your spare filament on top of the printer. Because it's got a plexiglass top. Yeah, all those videos you see of printers going stupid fast are bolted to tables and whatnot. Like, I have a video on my channel where I'm doing 300 millimeters a second with this guy before I bolted the table to the wall, and it's just going all over the place. This cold needs to go away. Actually, I'm over the cold. It's just I got the dry throat and a random cough still. The joys of having kids in daycare. Kit, I need to go about figuring out a lighting solution. So there are a few out there. The common one you see is a bunch of baffles with the little, I don't think I have any left, is the LED strips that you get off AliExpress for dirt cheap in baffles, and they sit up in the top here. Or you can do the super awesome thing that I do, and you go buy like a $5 shop light, okay, and you just put it on top of your printer, and you turn it on, and that's what I do. Because you don't realize how dark it is inside a printer until you need to watch it. Have you seen the Hevort Core XY? Is that a Hevo derivative? I believe it's a Hevo derivative. Let me pull it up. Oh, it's on Thingiverse, so that'll be good. Okay, so I gotta go back quite a bit. So I'm trying to find the video that I was talking about earlier of the prototype Vzero back in the day. No, not that. No, maybe it's this one. Okay, Vort. So the bed's on rails. Yeah, it's all on rail. That's a lot of plastic. It's a lot of frame. You know what? You know what, Kit? That's fine. If you want shame, you can go back and look at the serial for V1100. That video is sad, in my opinion. Yeah, my serial, like, for those that don't know, if you go back, a few weeks back, I did a serial for V2 Tallboy. I think it's 579. I got serial number of that. But that serial is how all serials should be done, I think. But if you, I'll pull it up here, the serial that I did for the original for Tallboy, or for when Tallboy was a V1. But honestly, as long as it's pushing plastic and we can see it, you get a serial. We're not super stingy about it. Man, I've done a lot of YouTube videos in the past 2 years. Oh yeah, the doors. I'm still a fan of the latch single panel door, because I have it gasketed all around. Plus, every time I try to cut acrylic by hand, I end up breaking it, so I'm not going to bother. Okay. Oh, we're getting there, we're getting there. Gotta be there soon. Nope, one more page. The doors, I think it's 2.1 or 2.2. I can't remember. I haven't touched the enclosure. It's still like 2.1 or 2.2 enclosure. Yeah, they had the one piece where it slide down. I know, I just like the 4 clips. And they've held up for 2 years, so working fine. Okay, so let's see here. So Vort. That is a lot of printer. And yeah, water cooling. I'm not a fan of water cooling unless you absolutely need water cooling. Like you're printing peak all the time, then go water cooling. But I don't trust water attached to a hotend flapping around at 300 millimeters a second over high voltage electronics. At least at a V2 or Voron, the electronics are usually below. But still, like, that is a lot of printer. Chunky boy. I haven't built one though, so I can't really comment on it. Okay. So, I'm going to pull up some memory lane videos here. This is the original. Come on. Wow, slow. As I said, I need a new computer. It's working, but it's chooching. Maybe 480p? It's not the internet, it's the computer itself. here. Immerse it in mineral oil. Okay, so this is like original V2.0 or V0 Z moving with the printed. And it's on ramps. Originally this thing had ramps. So there's ye oldie. So that is that. Now, in terms of serials, how I said, you know, if you go back a couple weeks, I posted a video, V2 Ascension, I think I called it, which was a serial for Tallboy. This is, when it was originally a V1, this was my serial video. So if you want to critique anything about your serial videos, this was my serial video for V1 Tallboy. Look at that. Ramps, A4988s, wires everywhere. Mark 8 extruder. Literally a dowel zip tied to something for to hold it. Unfocused camera. A BL Touch. Blue tape on the bed. Yeah. Wires hanging down everywhere. Yeah, this was my first Voron. Now, to be fair, I redid. Okay, the other video played through, and now I was watching Joel do a tour of Prusa. Now, to be fair, I redid my serial video. Okay, so this was after I went through and rebuilt the entire machine in ABS, and like made it look proper, you know, enclosed the electronics. That's a BM Gobius before we had the Mobius 3. So that's it all cleaned up. I'm running Marlin. Yeah. You know what? I like the Ultra Base. The problem with the Ultra Base, it's glass, so the inductive probes don't work on it, and it does have a finite life. It does wear out eventually, but you know what? It's not a bad print surface, I will say. I still have it. I just can't use it anymore. Are fan speeds used for ABS cooling much? I usually run a 10 to 20% fan for ABS, but pretty much with ABS, you really only want to run a fan if your printer is enclosed and you have high ambient temperatures, okay? So if your printer is, you know, out in the open, or it's an Ender 3 with, you know, a towel draped over it, don't run with a fan, okay? But if you are fully enclosed and your printer is dialed in, yeah, you can run a 10 to 20% fan on low, and it's basically just enough so that it gives you crisper edges and your overhangs are a little bit cleaner. It helps with details. So, you know, it just makes ABS print a little bit better. It's not really required, but it does help a bit. So yeah, you don't want to run a lot of fan. You're not running like 50% fan or 40%. It's funny when you look at the print from certain angles, it looks fine. It's direct overhead lighting makes pretty much every print look bad. And right now, I got a shop light right above shining straight down, and the camera's looking flat on. So this is literally worst case for print quality. Yeah, the Ultra Base, I think I have it under here. Yeah. Yeah, I still have the Ultra Base. It's right here. Covered in dust. It sits on the stack of 4 mirrors that I bought from Lowe's. They used to use 12 by 12 inch mirrors until I started taking chunks out of them. So right now we are 80% done our print. 12 minutes left, roughly. Yeah, the thing is that, you know what, once you move to PI, though, PI is gold. It is gold, look at it. I have an extra one somewhere. I don't know where I put it. But I have another 120 mil somewhere. Oh, you know what, it's for, this is the bed for the crappy i3, little 12 volt, 120 mil bed. With another energetic one. PI on this side. One day I'll finish building this little crappy printer. All I need to do is wire it up. I just never got around to it. Yeah, PEI, with PETG, the only issue is it can bond a little too well, so you kind of need to spray it down with Windex, apparently. I've never actually tried it, but I still have like one roll of PETG somewhere, or two actually. I think one's unopened. I have like an unopened box of black PETG. Yeah, PI and flex plate is all you need now. Unfortunately, I can't get Wham Bam or Ultra Stick or any of the other like big manufacturer ones up here in Canada. At least I haven't seen. They might be now, but when I looked a while ago, they weren't. So I just use energetic. I've been running the energetic plate on my 250 here for 8 months now. I haven't had any issues. So now, granted, I don't print as much as I was last year. Last year I was printing a lot, because I was doing PIF. But now that I don't do PIF anymore, unfortunately, I don't have the time. I don't print as much, but it still works great. So the problem with the energetic PI is it is a little bit thin. So you can, scratch it, ding it, take chunks out of it with a nozzle crash, and it does bubble up eventually. But so far, mine's been fine. I haven't had any issues. And if it does bubble up, you can usually poke it with a needle and get the air out. It's that bad. CS Hide is good. Now, if you have like McMaster, you can roll your own and buy a high temperature magnet, a sheet of spring steel, and a CI or CS Hide PEI sheet, and make your own spring steel sheet. It's not impossible. It's a lot of people have done it. And personally, I'm a fan of sticker PEI on a spring steel instead of textured, because it's replaceable at that point. Because, like, for example, on Switchwire, it's got the Triangle Labs flex plate, which is textured PEI on both sides. I don't like it as much as just a PEI sticker. I find I'm not getting as much good layer adhesion. But the problem is it's textured, so I'd have to take like an orbital sander or something to it to get the texture off before I can put a sticker on it. So I might just end up buying like a 250 plate from Energetic just for Switchwire. Yeah, the McMaster car magnets are good. I'm using the magnets that come with them. I haven't had any failures of the magnet yet. I know some people have. Now, I'm also super anal about applying them, and I put a lot of weight on them and prep it really good. I did a video on it. If you haven't watched my video on how to apply a mag base or a magnetic sheet to your printer for a flex plate, go ahead and watch it. But I put a lot of time into putting them on, and so far I haven't had a single one fail on me yet. So yeah, the TL textured PI is pretty weak. I'm printing PLA with a brim. Weak. Have I done any more multicolored prints with Switchwire? Unfortunately not. With Y splitters being as jam-tastic as they are, I know a few of us are playing around with them now. I'm not the only one having one operational. But I've been working on Vzero and trying to do videos for the channel, the free time I have. So I haven't unfortunately been playing with that as much. I might try a print or two this week, and maybe record it or stream it, because I have the week off. But unfortunately, I don't have as much free time as I used to, and the streams are what I'm trying to do right now. So this guy ate up a lot of my free time lately. The joys of children. I find textured PI from Energetic is a lot better than Triangle Labs. Yeah, the Energetic stuff is better, but honestly I have more luck with stuff sticking to just the sticker. So obviously we need some pressure advance. We got some bulging in the corners there. So it's been printing for like an hour now. That's good. So okay, so that's not too bad. Yeah, they're not too bad. So the motors are good. Obviously, when you're printing a print on a printer for the first time, especially if it's a brand new build, you should watch it. Either be in the room with it, or at least have a camera on it so you can watch it remotely. Because, you know, just in case something goes wrong, it just starts printing, you layer shift, whatever. You don't want it, you know, just running in the dark, lights out. But you are going to want to check your motors, make sure your motors aren't getting too hot. Listen to the printer. Like right now I got, you know, noise canceling earphones in, but, you know, actually listen to the printer. You'll hear if something's rattling, if something's binding, if something's clicking, or if something sounds off. Usually something's wrong. Turn it upside down. Yeah, we've got enough of it printed. So, try not to grab the belts. Oh yeah, that's all the nuts. And this gives you a good chance to check underneath and make sure all your wiring is good. Make sure, you know, nothing is pinching or overheating, you know. Everything looks good there. As you can see, our lights are blinking, so we're good there. You can, you know. So, yeah, the stepper driver heat sinks are nice and cool. So we're all good there. So you can passively cool this. No need for fan. Yeah. Dang it layer shifted. Damn. I do have a layer shift. Yeah, I did skip a layer. Oh well. Okay, so you can't judge me for the layer shift. So if anyone judges me for the layer shift, I had it upside down. Is this a DQ Blizzard printer? Yeah, if I don't flip it over before if you don't flip it over after you build it, you get it for free. Oh yeah, I should probably get the filament actually back on the spool. Okay, am I going to include the electronics? No, it's like if you look, it's pretty much flat down. None of the wires hang down. So usually I just leave them open. It sits on a table. I keep the door closed. My son doesn't get in here, so. You know what? It layer shifted on the second one. It was fine on the first flip, but I wanted to get the second flip on camera, and it layer shifted there. Or it might have been my, you know what? It might have been my thumb hitting the gantry, because it shifted on. Yeah, it shifted in 2 axes, so I may have bumped it. Oh well, whatever. It's a test print. You know how many cubes I have? And this thing has already been serialized, so I don't need a serial video. Yeah, it wasn't the most gentle flip. That too. And come on, it's a Voron. It's built like a tank. I won't say I haven't dropped one of these things before. It's already got a serial on maker. It's V0003. So for enclosing this, the easiest solution is you build a V2.4 and you just put it in the V2.4 when you want to print. But that is all the Vorons are designed to be enclosed. This guy won't be enclosed. I'm not going to enclose it. I might put I'm probably going to put side panels on at some point, but I probably won't put a front or a top on it. Simply for the fact that I have ABS printers already set up. But all Vorons, of course, are designed to be fully enclosed right off the hop. So you just slap panels on the side. And then for those that don't know, there is a printable hat. So this is the hat. You just print it, put some panels in it, and then it just sits on top like so. And you screw it down and attach it. Get in your hole. There you go. So yeah, that's the hat. So unlike a lot of printers, you don't need to put this in an enclosure. You just panel it up and it's enclosed and you put a hat on it. The V1, the switch wire, and the V0 don't need hats because they're fully enclosed right off the hop. Okay, so we are done. Yes, custom cardboard or trash plastic. Okay, so as you can see, we do have a little bit of a layer shift there, obviously, from flipping it upside down twice, or 3 times actually. But now here's the thing with lighting. Certain lights, let me get this on the main camera so I can see it better. From certain angles, it looks fine. But as soon as you hit it with that overhead lighting, ugh. Like, that looks really good. Ugh. That looks really good. Ugh. But honestly, for literally, this is the first thing to come off this printer. That was just assembled. Like literally, this is the first thing printed on this printer. On a printer built from scratch and parts. That hasn't been tuned. Hasn't been tweaked, has an unspec lead screw that induces a slight wobble to it. My flow isn't calculated. It's got no pressure advance. It's got no input shaper. Accelerations aren't tuned. Speeds aren't tuned. Motors aren't properly tuned. And then flex plate magic. Ta-da. So there we go. And just to compare, I'm pretty sure this was V2 Calicube. I can't remember. Did I use black filament for Tallboy? Now this one you can see the, that's another thing I like about Gyroid. It doesn't bleed through as easily as grid infill. Grid infill like bleeds through really easily, I find. So this is another reason I like belted Z. You never have to worry about lead screw wobble on a belted Z. And obviously this printer's all pressure advanced tuned and everything, I think. Actually, no, I don't have the second. I don't have the other Calicube. Oh, maybe I do. Okay, dang it. So this is the Calicube off of Tallboy's first print, I believe. But after, I can't remember. Yeah, the one on the left here, this is Tallboy's first print, because I got the, you can see the glue on the bottom. So just to compare the two. So this is a very first print off of V2.4, very first print off of a V0. And they're actually a slightly different model. So they're pretty close. Like obviously this one's Bowden, this one's direct feed, so obviously they're going to need more tuning, but direct feed gives you better results out of the box. So yeah, put the bed back on. There we go. Okay, so let me catch up on the chat there. How hot will it become enclosed? Or how hot will it become inside when enclosed? About 40 to 50 C. Now, here's the thing with enclosures too. I see it all the time where people enclose their printer, especially in like a lax or whatever, and you have this much room above the printer because they have the spool in there on top of the printer, and there's like this much room on each side. You want your enclosure to be as small as possible, because the smaller amount of air in there, the less you have to heat up, so the hotter it will get, and the easier it'll get hot. Why am I mirrored? Oh, one of the cubes is was modeled incorrectly. We fixed it. That's why it's on V7. What are your temp recommendations for ABS? Depends on the plastic, usually 240-ish, plus minus 5 to 10 degrees Celsius, depending on the plastic. The green is eSun Pine Green ABS Plus, or PLA Plus, sorry. So yeah, so that came out pretty good considering I flipped it upside down. Good layer adhesion though. Let me actually look at these with my own eyes instead of through a camera though. So yeah, so I am having repetition every, it's hard to say, let me find a flat surface. Yeah, it's like every 4 millimeters it looks like. I might be able to tune some of that out though. This is not a good print for wobble. When you're checking for wobble, you actually want to be printing something square, like actually just a square. But yeah, it's about every 4 millimeters it looks like. So that's not too bad. So yeah, so that is our very first print. It's 10:30, so I don't think I'll start anything else. Does anyone have any questions? As always, I'll run to 11. I don't have to leave early today. So I'll leave open floor for the next half hour. So we'll just have a chit chat. And if anyone has any questions, want me to go over anything, I'll turn the printer off so I can show anything off on it. There we go. And always, you should always let your printers cool down a little bit before turning them off, just so your hot end it can jam if you just turn it off hot. So actually, one thing I'm going to try, I'm going to plug a camera into this, because we don't know how it'll run by a USB. So let's play with the camera. Power cord. Okay, have I seen a 4040 frame 2.4? So you could do 4040, as long as it's like the doubled up box frame 2020, so for 2020s basically. You may have to modify some parts and enclosure. It wouldn't be too hard. I don't think you would gain so much unless you plan on going super big. but it would be possible. You might have to modify some stuff though. I don't know. I don't think much, but mostly enclosure stuff and mounting. But you could do it for like at least the 4 verticals and the actual outside of the frame. Any tips on where to place foam on the enclosure panel? So don't do what I did. And unfortunately, this guy on all my sides has panel mounted to the frame. It just makes for a mess mounted to the panels. But you just run the foam along just the outside edges. Okay? And then it'll squish. Okay, Tim Proctor, 500 by 500. I'm going to officially recommend that you don't do 500 by 500 Vorons or any Core XY printer. At 500 by 500, your belts get obscenely long. They become very hard to tune. They stretch, and you're not going to be able to go fast or get anywhere near the same quality at anywhere near the same speeds that you see out of most Vorons. Ask anyone who has a 500 by 500 Core XY printer what kind of issues they have run into. That's why we only recommend going up to 350. Okay, so let me SSH into this guy. I am connected. So Vzero. So what was the command I had to run again, Raymond? If you're still in chat. Oh, excuse me. If you're still in chat. I had strange shrinkage on my ABS parts where the base layer and top were fine, but the middle was curved inwards like it deflated. That could be a temperature thing or something with the printer itself. I've never really seen that issue. That's never cropped up on any of my printers, so I haven't come across that. Let me check dimensional accuracy while we're, it's not official. So this is a 30 millimeter cube, so I got 30.06 on the Y and 30.1 on the X. Good enough for untuned plastic. And my Z is 29.9. Oh no, my Z is out a little bit. But that can come down to squish easily. And the fact that I flipped it upside down. Pseudo service webcam restart. Okay, let's try this. Okay, so I ran the command, and I guess I hit refresh. No webcam. But plugged into the right one. Try this one. There's too many USB ports. Oh, there we go. Aha! So this is the super shitty $4. Oh my god. Well, this is what a $4 webcam looks like, guys. So that's how you add a webcam, by the way. You just plug it in and reboot, and it should automatically come up. There is a file in the SD card after you format the SD card for Mainsail OS, where you have to. It's like Octoprint, where you set up the webcam essentially. But the thing is, though, this is really all you need for print monitoring. Like, you just want to be able to watch the print. As all you can see what spaghetti is. So unless you're like trying to make fancy time-lapse videos off of the webcam, which you should be using a separate camera if you want. Like, I'm thinking of mounting this guy right there. Because right there will give me enough of a view that I can see pretty much the majority of the print bed. The tool head won't hit it. And I can tuck the wire in there. Yeah, so that works fine. Okay, what is a command to check the status of a Raspberry, or is there a sudo command to check how much of this I'm using? Like load or something like that? I'm sure you Linux people know that. To see how much I'm taxing this thing. Top. Is that a command? Top. Okay, so I'm using 10% CPU. Really? That's it? Oh no, that's percent. Okay, where's... wait, I'm looking at the wrong thing. 8.8%? Is that right? Is that what I'm seeing there? 8% CPU usage? Yeah, that's less than I expected. It's running MPEG streamer, right? Terrence, will Spaghetti Detective work with Mainsail? At this time, none of the Octoprint plugins work. They are... This is a completely different environment than Octoprint. So there is... Moonraker is the API that talks to Clipper. And there is some work on some things. I know Spaghetti Detective is a big one. On getting ported over, essentially. Where is load? Load. Tasks. Where does it say load? But yeah, I've never used Spaghetti Detective, so where's load at? I can't see load. Use CPU percent. First line at the top. Root. Oh. Load average 0.46. So what is that? Is that like 55% or 0.5%? Because if it's only sitting at like half usage, that's not bad. Now, granted, this is like a $4 webcam, so let me try a better webcam. Buy a webcam. You're plugged in. How long is your cable? That's a long cable. That'll do. Come here. Okay, how do I get out of this? Escape. Whatever, I'll just load it again. Okay, so now I plugged a C920 into it, like an actual webcam. Instead of a $4 China special. Okay, so let's see here. Top. Okay, so load is... So is this 82%? Is that what that's meaning? Or which number am I looking at there? Of these numbers. Okay, let me try H-top. Okay, how do I escape this? Get out of there. Close. H-top. Q. No. How do I escape? Escape. Escape. Ah, fuck off. Q? Oh, okay. Or I could just reload. Nope, not Tallboy. Tallboy's offline. Okay, H-top. Okay, so 37. Oh, that's not bad. So yeah, 40% with a C920. Oh wow, look at that frame rate too. So So that's not bad, actually. That is a lot, and that's over USB. We were worried that USB... Now, it's not printing right now. Would printing increase this? Like, if I were to start a print right now, would that increase the load on it? And this is default. I think it defaults to like 720p, right? Doesn't it? I don't know what the default settings are for printing wood. Okay, so I know I'm not gonna let the print finish, but I'm gonna start a print just to see what our load is. Yeah, cause look at that frame. Oh man, hold on. You get in there. Macro. Testing. Belting. XY1. Yeah, so he's handling that pretty well. Now the thing is, it's not widescreen. This is a widescreen camera. Oh, it defaults to 480p. That's still not bad, honestly. Okay, so let's see. So I'm firing up a print right now. I got the C920 running. You know it's not looking at the right printer. So see, we're learning stuff. Because at first we thought, like, I know Ray brought up that we might have to plug in the webcam via a ribbon cable. But if we're using, like, not even 50% of load on a Raspberry Pi Zero while printing with a webcam, like 480p, that's perfectly usable to make sure, you know, you're not getting spaghetti. Now, I'd have to pull the SD card, I think, to modify the file to get 1080p. I'm sure 1080p would probably put a bigger load on it. Because the C920 has a built-in encoder, I think. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know. I don't know a lot about the tech. Well, yeah, it'll depend on... I can modify it by SSH. Well, if you know the command, because I do not know Linux at all. So we'll run a little bit late tonight because we're doing a little bit of main sale testing here live. Yeah, the print's going. It's heating up. So it's just the Cali Cube again. This time I won't flip it upside down. So it's sitting at 30%, 32. Like we're not using what, 57 megabytes of 369 megabytes, yay Pi Zero. Honestly, okay, Raspberry, if somebody knows, anyone at Raspberry, make a Raspberry Pi Zero with a dual or quad core on it with 2 USB ports. That's all I want. And Wi-Fi. Okay? That's all I want. Maybe a gig of RAM. Okay? It'd be perfect. So right now you have to go through like UART to get USB and SKR hooked up. Because right now there's only one USB. So I had to go through UART, which if you watched last week's stream, or 2 weeks ago stream, yeah, it's like sitting 25%. So it's really not taxing this a lot. This is good to know. So yeah. So this is good. So this... Now, I would love to see a Raspberry Pi Zero on a V2 running 7 motors with a 1080p stream, see how it's handling. So, okay, so we just had to jump to 37%. What am I doing? What am I doing? Put the stream back up so I can see what you guys are saying. Yeah, they need to update the Pi Zero. Like, it's so... For what you need, you don't need much for some things. But... Jetson Nano with an NVIDIA GPU. I don't think I need to run machine learning. Because then it could self-tune. Because right now we can kind of already do that with input shaper and accelerometers, but you need a separate Raspberry Pi for that. Yeah, this originally had a Pi 3 in it. And my Pi Zero sat on top of Tallboy here, just running a webcam. So I could watch it, because this guy runs RepRap firmware. So I need to put the Pi 3 in this guy now and actually convert it to Clipper. So. Oh wait, what am I doing? You can watch the print. You know, we've seen this already. So yeah, it's holding pretty good. Yeah, I'm actually impressed. I'm legit impressed on how well this is. Second RPI. Yeah, there's been some updates to Clipper recently. Because of Raspberry Pi stuff and what we've been playing around with. That's one of the reasons we recommend Clipper. Is like if you go to the, you know, let me pull it up here. Like, it's not that we just found Clipper and it just happens to work and we're just using off the shelf. Like, let's pull up contributors. So if you look at the Clipper contributors list, you got Kevin, and then a guy who's, you know, part of the Voron crew, McMatrix, a guy who's part of the Voron crew. Yeah, there's quite a few, like, of the top 4 committers, 2 of them are Voron crew guys. So, like, and Kevin's done a bunch of work for us, like, in terms of, like, adding features that we've asked for and stuff like that. So we can't complain. Clipper has treated us so well. So. Yeah, RCF, Fessifu. A ton of people have contributed. So. Now, as for slicers, that's completely different. You know, some guys like Super Slicer, Prusa Slicer. I've started using Prusa Slicer a bit more. The only reason I use Cura so much is I've used it since I got my, you know, Monoprice Select Mini. It's never treated me wrong. I've always been able to print functional parts that come out looking good, that are dimensionally accurate, and I'm if it works and nothing's wrong with it, why would I change type guy. So I haven't really been driven away from it because I've tried the other ones and I haven't really, nothing has stood out enough for me to jump ship and relearn. But with Switchwire and the dual extrusion, I am playing around with Prusa Slicer a little bit more. So, but yeah, Cura, you have to play around with the settings to kind of get it right. And what I tend to do is just stick whatever version I know works. Like I'm still on 4.5. I haven't upgraded to the newer versions because they like to introduce bugs and shit. So I just stay a few revisions back, and I've never had an issue, really. So, I don't know. I have no issue with Cura. It works. You know, it's a Voron. I'm sure I can, you know, load up, you know, Cura 15.2 from way back in the day that shipped on the Monoprice Select mini CD drive or whatever, and it'll work just fine. So everyone has their slicer of choice. I see no point in getting bent out of shape about it. But yeah, so we are sitting at, I haven't seen this spike above 37% so far. I wish I could skip ahead in the print, but it's already doing infill at, we're at near max speeds for this print. So yeah, I think we're okay there. Yeah, their newest, honestly with Cura, I never like jump up whenever they jump up. I wait a little bit usually. I usually, wait a while, don't go to 4.7, go to 4.7.1 or something like that. But I just think on 4.5 for now. But yeah, so, okay, so I think that's enough testing for now. Like, the webcam's still... like, we're still getting decent frame rate. Like, it's still 10... oh, say, so it's 480p. So, yeah. So, I think we're good there. So, that's some good info there. Okay, so I'm going to cancel the print because I've got enough of these guys. So that's good to know. So, does anyone have any questions? We got a couple minutes left here. I know we went on a little bit of a tangent there with some webcam testing. But, that was fun. So now we have learned that we are okay with webcams on a Pi Zero. At least for now. If you try to bump it up to 1080p or something, we might have an issue. But right now, it seems to be okay. So... we should be good there. What is the cost of Vzero? So depending on your location in the world, it's about $400 to $600 USD to build. Thoughts on rails versus rods? They both function pretty well. If you get good quality rails, good quality rods, they'll both perform pretty good. The advantage with rails, I find they're more compact and it's easier to mount stuff to, because a rail you need to, or a rod you need to envelop the LMU, whereas it is this you can just bolt something right onto the carriage and you're done. So you get better mounting options. It's more compact. They are a little bit more rigid, and because you can just mount them right to an extrusion instead of having to support them in other ways. And also the advantage with a rail over a rod has to be unsupported the entire span, where a rail you can mount it to an extrusion and have it supported the entire span. So especially over longer distances, you want rails. So for kits, in terms of kits, so I know right now there's a few V0 kits. I think there's a few companies doing even V2 kits or V1 kits. As of right now, there are no official kits, and there is no plans to be any official Voron kits. So I know some vendors do have kits for some of the Vorons or components or whatnot. Just be aware, none of them are official. Nothing's officially endorsed or anything. Some are good. I'm not going to say anything bad about any of them because I haven't used any of them. But they are all officially unofficial. So, but there are kits out there if you're looking for one location to buy everything from. All things equal, is V0 or V1 a better choice for a smaller machine than a V2? So, a V1 is a really good 250mm printer plus or minus 50mm. If that is the size you want to go with a V1. Okay, if you're okay with under 200 millimeters, then a V0. I wouldn't scale a V0 above 200, and I wouldn't scale a V1 below 200. Okay. The V0 can use any Pi, as we're finding out. So right now, if you are running Octoprint, you do need a Pi 3 or Pi 4. Okay, that is the big thing. If you're running Mainsail OS, which is the Clipper standalone operating system that you've seen me using here, is running on a Pi 0. As far as we know, it seems to be working just fine. But you could use any Pi. Okay. I don't think anyone has a Pi 1 kicking around, but Paramount 3D ABS. I don't think I've tried the Paramount. It's probably fine. Most good brands are okay. Like, the only ABS I officially recommend stay the hell away from is Sunlu ABS. Their PLA has been fine for the very little amount I've used, but I bought like 2 or 3 spools of their ABS because it was cheap in Canada for a little while there. The first spool printed fine. The next 3 spools were jam-tastic, where like I was legit junking nozzles because they were jamming up so bad from like just stuff in the plastic was contaminated with something that was jamming the nozzle. It wasn't the plastic jamming the nozzle, it was something in the plastic. So yeah, the Pi 0 is basically a Pi 1. It just has a lot less ports. Like, at least with the Pi 1, you have more USB ports. You don't have to do the hooking up via UART like I did. Okay, that's cold enough. So yeah, so it's held up. Some people were complaining about my spiral wrap. So I got some sleeving, and I sleeved the wires. You know, it's straight up cosmetic, and it does absolutely nothing. It's for the appearance, I guess. So yeah, so that is the Vzero stream. So I do have some videos I'm going to be making. How to install Mainsail OS is probably going to be the big one. And a few other projects I'm going to see and try and get a few recorded, you know, while I'm on vacation right now, among other stuff that I'm doing. But as for streaming, I don't know. What do you guys want to see me do next? You want me to just keep doing like tips and tricks videos? I don't have any plans to build another Voron right now. So officially, I'm not going to do another build for a while because I have no plans for a V1. I don't have room for anything right now. I'm kind of out of room because it's printers on this side and stuff to fill printers on this side. So yeah. So what do you guys want to see? I can do videos if there's anything in particular you want me to show. I can do a stream trying to get the crappy i3 here running. Accelerometer turning. I don't have an accelerometer. I gotta buy one still. And I do have a spare Pi, but I don't have anywhere to power it actually. Gotta buy. Switchwire. I could do a stream on the switchwire itself. I won't take it apart, but I can definitely show off the components and some stuff. Yeah, crappy i3. I probably will end up doing the crappy i3 because it is. And I'll bring it out just because it's always fun to drag it off the shelf and have a part fall off of it. And a part fell. 2 parts fell. Well, this is crappy i3. This is a Bonsai. Is the name of the design off Thingiverse. So I just got to mount the bed to it and hook up all the wiring. It's got an extruder that is literally just a Mark 8, like motor on one side, drive gear on the other. 1515. These gears are attached with printed couplers. So yeah, so you know what? I might start faffing about with the printed i3 or the crappy i3. I do got to modify some stuff because now that I have it in here, I got a E3D or SKR Mini E3 V2 in here. So now I have a spare 1.2. So I'm going to use the 1.2 in this guy with probably 150 watt or 200 watt power supply. So I got to figure out how to mount those things still. Because as much as you guys would love me to probably, you know, play the Song of My People with some ramps, A4988 action, I'm sure you really don't want to deal with that. It's 2020. We're past ramps. So yeah. So. Okay, it almost fell. But it didn't. Okay, so crappy i3 it is probably. Did I watch the VR FF? No, unfortunately I missed most of it. It was Canadian Thanksgiving weekend this weekend. And had a wedding to go to, so that's why I didn't stream. So I was pretty much out and about. So funny thing, Chris, that thing has the same build volume as the Vzero. Actually, it's slightly bigger the Y, I believe. Yeah, a few companies did mention Voron, but I didn't watch anything. Was there anything big that I like? I do have a Twitter now. Okay, so I do have a Twitter because people kept pinging me on Discord, which I got no problem if you message me on Discord. But a lot of people were asking me, "Oh, are you streaming or whatnot?" So officially, I do have a Twitter now. So it's at 3DP Nero. The account is Nero 3DP. Twitter decided to put the 3DP part first, so whatever. So I do have a Twitter. So I'm only about 15 years late there. So feel free to join me on Twitter, follow me, whatever, share, like, I don't, whatever the Twitter thing is. I'll post on there if I'm streaming or whatnot, or videos or whatever. So, yeah, that's going to be how I'm going to communicate if I'm streaming or not. I do, as usual, I plan on streaming on Saturday nights. I work steady days, or I work steady afternoons, Monday to Friday. So the weekend's pretty much the only time I can stream. The only time I'm streaming this week is because I have this week off. So yeah, so I have a Twitter. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, go ahead, subscribe, ring the bell, comment, I don't know, all the other stuff that the algorithm likes. All hail the YouTube algorithm. Because without it, we are nothing. It's funny, when I upload a video, you can watch in the chart, like, when the algorithm either decides, like, yes or no, and it just, or, it's weird watching it. I have no idea how it works. You can tell sometimes it'll just grab onto something and it'll go, and then other times it'll just like, yeah, we don't like you. But yeah, so the Twitter is pretty much just communication. So, okay, what else? Okay, my phone's going off, so somebody subscribe. Thank you for subscribing to my Twitter. Any chance for Tool Changer? So right now for Tool Changer, there's really nothing official in the works for Tool Changer. In terms of what printer, it would be the V1. The V1's really the only Voron that would be adaptable to a Tool Changer, simply for the fact that it has a fixed gantry, and it's open in the front. So you either have to open in the front or open in the back, because you got to put the tools somewhere. V2, it doesn't work because the gantry moves on your X, Y, and Z. So you would have to like have all your tools mounted up top in the front, and then every time you go to do a tool change, you would have to come all the way up and grab a tool, and then come all the way down, whatever. So the printer would be massive and still have a pretty small print volume. So officially, there is nothing going on with tool changers officially. The V1 would be if you wanted to look into modding one to do a tool changer. The V1, I think somebody has played with it a little bit, but V1 is pretty much the only real Voron that would be an option on. V0 is obviously too small. Just if you want a tool change, just build two of these. And then switch wire is Core XZ. So there's really nowhere to put the other tool. You'd have to do IDEX, which would be easier on a traditional i3 Mendel style printer. Yeah, E3D is like the only ones working on a thing, and it's expensive. That's the only thing. It's like, go buy a Makino or a Haas, and just slap some V6s or Dragons or whatever on the tool heads there, and then there you go. There's a tool changer. Because tool changing is super common in CNC. It's not common in printers because printers are cheap. Okay, it's just not something that scales down price point wise, really. Like, I don't know, just the way it is. Okay, so with that, I think I'm going to call it a night there. As always, thank you for watching the stream. I hope you found it informative, you found it fun. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, ring that bell, comment. I have other videos on my channel, tutorials, previous streams. Go ahead, watch those. If you like it, share it with your friends. If not, whatever, I don't care. I do this for fun. This isn't my job. That's one thing that is nice to say, that I don't really need money to make money off this, so I just do this for fun. I'm learning, you're learning, we're all learning. That's why we do this. So everyone out there, be safe, wash your hands, take care. Happy whatever the American holiday is today. I know there's one, but whatever. But happy Canadian Thanksgiving. I'm going to go eat some more turkey. Peace.